So without further ado, I want to introduce our speakers tonight. So we are really fortunate, thanks to Northern California Underwater Photographic Society, who recommended them. They were speakers there. Steve Eilenberg and Marie Tartar are going to present Wonders of the Underwater World. And I want to tell you a little bit about them. They have been traveling and together, inseparable, for nearly 40 years, doing traveling and photography. They have a great website, which is in our newsletter, so check it out, www.aperturephotoarts.com. The common thread of their travels is the ocean and water. So not just ocean. They've done river rafting, they've done scuba diving, snorkeling all over the world, also bicycling, chasing lights. They've been to the Arctic, they've been to Antarctica, so they just about cover everywhere. They've gone to the Galapagos, Indonesia, Philippines, in Yucatan, Argentina, and many other places. They also do topside photography as well as underwater photography. Their work has been shown in many venues at the Smithsonian Museum of Natural History, La Jolla Museum, Atheneum, the Stephen Birch Aquarium, the San Diego Natural History Museum, and the Oceanside Museum of Art. Steve's done X-ray and CT scan based work, which I think we're going to see some of tonight. And it's been shown in museums, the Museum of Photographic Art. And Marie's underwater imagery was featured in a two-woman show entitled The Tonic of Wildness in 2020 at the Photographer's Eye Gallery at Escondido. And both of their images were exhibited in 2024 in a show entitled Inner Space. They've been involved with the San Diego Underwater Photographic Society, one of our sister societies to our Northern California Underwater Photographic Society, and contributed to photofocus.com for their work. So lots of travels and much interesting work. So we're about to see a great show. So I'll let you take it over. Thank you for presenting.
Okay, go ahead and just share your screen and you can take it away.
And are you seeing it, hopefully? And are you hearing us all right?
Yes, everything is good.
All right, wonderful. All right, well, there's a lot of ways to photograph the underwater world, including ways that don't even involve getting wet. Like this first image here, which is taken from a drone in French Polynesia and is giving us a little preview of the sharks that we were quickly going to encounter, blacktip sharks, very abundant there.
So there are a lot of ways to approach this. We could talk about, we could do this by water temperature, we could do this by big or small critters, we could do this by snorkeling or diving. We decided to just talk about lighting considerations, which is pretty broad, but we'll talk about how various things have been lit. This is Marie during a cenotes dive some years ago. Miniaturization hasn't really happened for us. In fact, her rig is just a little bit bigger than this now. But here you see we've got two old Inon strobes, which I actually have collecting dust. If anybody wants them, they can email me and I'll send them, and a spotting light.
But while our rigs, definitely are kind of big, there are some forms of underwater photography that don't require quite such an imposing apparatus as this. And, one of those is a drone. They've become markedly smaller and more portable, so small now that you don't really have to have that internal debate, as you pack your third bag as to, to leave it at home or to take it. This was a fairly recent cold water trip that I enjoyed so much with a guide and another friend that I persuaded Steve that we needed to return, despite the fact that the water is 50 degrees and that you're out on a boat without a bathroom all day. So it was definitely a test of my then newly acquired heated vest. But these are Southern Atlantic right whales, which gather in abundance in Argentina in a place called Peninsula Valdez. It requires submitting a portfolio and being accompanied by a government guide, but it was a pretty amazing experience. But there were times when the water was very, very murky, enough that it was almost easier to see the whales from above than in the water, which can be a little intimidating sometimes, especially if you are close enough to see the whale is within 10 feet of you, but you can see it much better above water than underwater. And sometimes when they get amorous, like as in this drone image, they can really be very involved in their own activity. This was a courting group with 3 males chasing a female. This is the one that won, but you can see that they've basically created a whirlpool of sand that you can see in the upper right. So there are times when maybe it isn't such a great idea to be in the water. Normally with whales, they seem to be very aware of where their body parts are, and while injury is possible, as long as you don't smoke a whale, usually it's pretty safe. But with a courting group, this is probably one of those situations where it's maybe better to be out of the water.
This is Garden of the Queen in Cuba, and this was one of our first encounters with the American crocodile. They know them by name and know which ones are safe. And the lighting situation here was a little bit complex. It's basically skylight and strobe light. So I'm pointing the strobes under the water and doing an over-under. When we're lighting big animals, we use natural light because the strobes just can't do the job. And if we're snorkeling or close to the surface, it really doesn't matter. And it doesn't usually matter. We have these beautiful rays that basically are transmitting down from surface ripples that I think really adds to the drama. And this is Marie with a much lighter rig since we're not snorkeling with strobes.
So a lot easier to move, even though whales, it's basically pretty tough to keep up with a whale. And so the more streamlined you are, and even the difference between having a rig with or without strobes, strobes will seriously slow you down.
Yeah. I'm sure some of you have been with whale sharks before. They're awesome creatures by their size. They don't seem to be super geniuses, and they're not cuddly and interactive, but they certainly are awesome to shoot.
One thing about shooting large animals, though, is that sometimes it's very tough to convey the scale of them. A layperson might not be fully aware that those remoras that are catching a ride on the back of this whale shark are 2 to 3 feet long themselves. So sometimes it really can be very helpful to include a person, which is a scale that I think most of us visually understand much better.
This is a humpback calf, pretty good size already. I think it's not quite this, it's a little foreshortened with the diver in the background. It wasn't really quite this large. Really a thrill to be in the water with these guys. And of course, we can't light them with a strobe. And like the whale shark, we have some of these light rays that are coming through the ripples of the surface. This was a recent trip off of Cabo. They had just finished decimating a dolphin. It was quite a horrible sight to see, but for some reason, I don't think a human has ever been killed aside from the captive orcas. I don't think a human's ever been killed by them. And we've been with them several different trips, and we get flybys. Again, they're not particularly interactive. They're certainly aware of us, but it's
a thrill to see, though. They're absolutely enormous, and they're kind of on their way and feeding and just generally kind of ignoring us.
Now, this is a little bit different. These we've done 2 trips now to Dominica to snorkel with sperm whales, and unlike the humpback, these guys are sort of Cabbage Patch dolls of whales. They're soft. The skin is smooth, and I know this because one of them was mouthing me and trying to put me in its mouth, and I was able to actually close the trap door with my hand and got a feel of the skin and what's beneath. This is a mother and calf.
Not that we intentionally touch whales, but on our last trip, There was one female that was so curious that like several times people in our group felt kind of a bump from behind, thought it was another of our group, turned around only to find a giant gray head right next to them.
They're very interactive. They're very social. They're very tender with each other. And we were in the water with as many as 17 of them. And did not really feel in danger. They knew where their body parts were, even those little eyes that are way back from the front of the head. They're very aware of us, and they were very gentle. It was just a fantastic experience.
Yeah, seeing the way they interact with each other, the word that comes to mind is affectionate. For me, it's just remarkable to see their interactions.
Where were these whales?
Dominica,
the
in
island.
the southern Caribbean, kind of between Guadeloupe and Martinique.
Thank you.
This is Iceland. This is the
It's a
continental
famous
divide.
It's a famous
called Silfra.
dive site called Silfra, where the North American tectonic plate closely approximates the European plate. They are slowly sliding apart, like 2 centimeters a year, I believe, something like that. But it's it's not a place that you go for wildlife, that's for sure. But the water that is filling what is effectively an underwater canyon, or appears to be, is remarkably clear because it's filtered through, it's glacial filtered water. And the visibility can be 200 plus feet, 300 feet even. It's possible.
So this is the European and this is the North American plate here. And this lighting situation is natural light with an added light for accent from the model.
So we had a model guide who would accompany us and, hold position for a few seconds as we slowly made our way down this crevice. Normally, I don't usually like to include scuba bubbles in a shot, especially if they're in the background and unintentional and uncontrolled. But this is one situation where I actually think the scuba bubbles kind of help to draw the eye and point out the tiny diver in between those giant plates of rock.
So this is obviously fresh water, glacial water, and it's 6 degrees.
4 degrees C, about 36 or 37 degrees. Very, very, very cold.
Yeah.
Right.
So silhouetting can be interesting. I don't do it much. Maybe my strobe wasn't even working here. This is a pelagic manta ray. This is Socorros. And again, having a remora on its back to sort of give us scale. We were seeing critters there as much as probably 16 to 20 feet tip to tip. Very, very awesome creature and a big brained animal for that family. This one liked to be tickled by bubbles, so clearly it knew divers. And if you didn't blow bubbles under it, it wouldn't stay with you.
Snell's window.
Oh, yeah, and this is a lighting situation. This is Snell's window. Thank you for reminding me. This was a trip we did last year. Really a crazy looking creature. This is a thresher shark.
Malapascua, Philippines, one of the very few places in the world where divers can reliably see thresher sharks. We had never seen one, and we've been diving 35 years. For whatever reason, it used to be that in order to see these threshers at Malapascua, one would have to go like before dawn in the dark to an island where the depth was 80 or 90 feet. So obviously that was kind of a difficult shooting situation. Fortunately, we dilly-dallied long enough that during the pandemic, for some reason, the threshers disappeared and resurfaced at a nearby island where the depth is only like 45 feet. So this is a case where procrastination actually worked in our favor. So even at 40, 45, 50 feet, they don't really allow using strobes. So this is a natural light shot despite the depth.
And even early morning. So this is basically due to my Nikon D850 having a very good sensor where you could do auto ISO and salvage the image. But I was very, very pleased to get that. It's one of your shots.
This this is a stingless jelly. It's sort of analogous to Jellyfish Lake in Palau. There are a few other locations there in Indonesia and Malaysia. This one is in Indonesia. It's kind of more of a lagoon than a lake, but similar situation where jellyfish have evolved to essentially be not very dangerous to humans. It was a late afternoon situation. This is with strobe, but I'm snorkeling. So, my camera's probably just a foot or two below the surface and looking up, catching a little bit of the late afternoon light in the jungle overhead, but the water itself quite dark.
And this is always a fun technique when you close to the surface with strobe. These are half beaks, I think.
Yeah, half beaks.
Yeah, in a mangrove forest in Raja Ampat, and getting the reflection is always a thrill.
Double the fish.
Double the fish, right?
Yeah. Sadly, I don't think most liveaboards take people to this beautiful area anymore. I think there were a few crocodile incidents, and they are not the friendly American crocodiles like in Cuba.
Yeah, they tried to take a diver several years ago, I think, if you remember that from Dan. This is a nice photo technique. I'm using strobe and reflective light, basically from the sun reflecting off the sand. And I even have these wave ripples on the black tip reef shark here. This is a Napoleon wrasse. Always fun to shoot. Difficult shooting situation. Again, this is one of our trips to Cuba. This American crocodile, we'd met him some years earlier.
When he was half this size.
So he's pretty big now. They come when they're called, at least this one did. And it's swimming into the current. I'm trying to get past it enough to get my shot where the current's trying to push me into its mouth. And I think there's a lot of drama you get from strobing this animal. So you get the teeth and the inside of the mouth lit up. This is a gray reef shark. Now we're in the
Fakarava at the Wall of Sharks, a very famous kind of like a shallow canyon at 50 to 60 feet underwater in French Polynesia, where you can see just wave after wave after wave, a virtual river of these sharks. Obviously, it also kind of highlights, what strobe can and can't do. So the shark that's very close to us is, the detail is brought out by the strobe. The ones in the background, and there are probably 20 of them that, if we were to count, obviously they're much more blue and gray and are much further away and are out of reach of the strobe.
Yeah, so it's good to have the strobe arms up so you make it look like it's somewhat natural light, although arguably I've overlit the belly a little bit. This was a very difficult photographic situation. We're in Los Islotes in the Sea of Cortez. This is the dominant bull. He has a harem and all the fish he can eat. He is very black and sucks up the light, and the fish were very reflective, so it was a very challenging lighting situation. But using diffuse light and moving the strobes out a little farther, I was able to eke out a shot. Periodically, there'd be diving birds into the bait ball as well, which is just absolutely spectacular to see. Another lighting situation, we're in the cenotes again. This is a friend that we often travel with, Greg, and we've got God's rays and strobe light. So I like that combination. This is with diving, even though it was very close to the surface. And like with the American crocodile, getting some light into the mouth really required having a strobe.
That said, not all pinniped shots require strobe. I took this in Argentina at a sea lion colony that doesn't get very many visitors. They were so curious. It was literally like being mobbed by a bunch of puppies. They were practically pushing me over in the water. But once I stopped screaming into my strobe, I really enjoyed it. Oh, into my snorkel, rather.
Yeah. This was another failure. My strobes didn't fire up on this dive. This is the Channel Islands. I assume most of you have been there. Just phenomenal, beautiful kelp forest. I figured I had nothing to lose, so I did put it on auto ISO, and I got some pleasing shots, I thought, with no strobes at depth. This is what I had intended to do. This is also at the Channel Islands, using strobe, getting sort of a stained glass translucent experience with the subject, looking for new kelp that doesn't have a lot of bryozoan on it. And then this one was a variation of the previous, although now I've got some God's rays and some sun in there. So I'm having natural light, God's rays, and strobe light, and I rather like the way this came out. Now we're in Indonesia. This is, again, we're flying a drone, giving a look at just how beautiful the Raja area is, just more islands than you can shake a stick at. I think maybe 17,000 or something.
I don't know.
I'm not sure.
I'm not sure, like, if those tiny little islets count as islands, but yeah, obviously, it's a beautiful area.
So here's us. Always a little challenging with a full dinghy to bring a live drone back without giving somebody a haircut.
This is taken in Tubataha, which is a national park, a protected marine area in the Philippines, with a very healthy family of huge barrel sponges topped with crinoids and just tons of reef fish dancing overhead. So very, very lovely and healthy protected reef there.
Again, putting the strobes up so it looks like natural sunlight. This is a hawksbill that noticed, not me, but my camera. I saw itself reflected in the dome, and I don't know if it wanted to mate with the camera or kill it.
I think he just thought he was, well, there's a handsome fellow.
But followed me up all the way to the surface and then gave up. Now we're actually a little bit north of you. I assume some of you have been there. This is God's Pocket.
British Columbia, at the north end of Vancouver Island.
So you wonder, what it has to offer. Actually, the food was fantastic, and this thing that looks like a guillotine on the boat is actually an elevator to take you out of the water. And you can imagine being so frozen with your steel tank and your 30 plus pounds of weight and the camera to basically stand up and be delivered out of the water is just such a treat. That's Marie and our friend Greg that we often travel with. So why would we go to British Columbia? There's so many wonderful critters. This pair of Hudson horned Dorids and this little voyeur back here checking out the action. This used to be more, there used to be more dive operations, and the male wolf eel was more used to having humans and divers in the water. Our last time there, not so much. I think because the God's Pocket is the only show in town now, they're just not encountering us anymore. And I think that they were a little bit shy. But in the day, they would actually pretty much ask you to open up a sea urchin with your knife. It would look at the sea urchin.
In the day being in the 90s.
Yeah, look at you, look at your knife, look at your sea urchin, and we were very happy when you would open one up for it.
So the sea urchins, one of the reasons to go up north is that it seems like all the invertebrates are on steroids. Like that anemone has to be like 10 inches across. Everything, even the nudibranchs seem to be giant. It's just every surface seems to be covered with life, and it's beautiful and colorful. And even the octopuses are absolutely enormous.
So this is the GPO, the giant Pacific octopus. And it was doing various poses for me. But it was very cooperative to land here where I've got this interesting sea cucumber and this sea urchin. It just made for a very nice negative space. And unfortunately for Maria, I was the only one to see it on this particular dive, but very, she wasn't pleased. On this particular time of year, which was when now?
This was fall. We've been in April a couple of times, but the last trip we did was in fall, when for just a couple of weeks, suddenly there will be this huge population of hooded nudibranchs, and they're very, very sizable. Some of them with the hoods.
Oh, dinner plate.
Yeah, like the size of a dinner plate.
Yeah, water was kind of green, but there were just millions of them. Some of them free swimming and others sessile and feeding, but
An
really,
amazing sight.
truly.
All right, switching gears back to some comfortingly warm water. Actually, this was in Fiji where we almost froze to death, but in August. Just, spectacular life over a wonderful grouping of anemones. And, like most photographers, we can't resist clownfish either.
Yeah, they stay put and they're interesting and they have all these expressions, and just wait for them for that millisecond where they get into a good negative space, and we definitely break for anemone fish. And here we are in Fiji. No, this was Fiji, right? Yeah.
Well, this in the Indo-Pacific, and here we have a pair of diligent parents who returned again and again to that little patch on the bottom left there, where they are tending their brood of babies.
So it is a matriarchal society. So actually, this is not the dad, but this little patch of eggs here, when they're very aggressive and charge the divers, there are eggs somewhere. So you look for a clear patch somewhere and maybe a little bit of roughage on it, and you can hone in and see something like this.
Probably just hours away from being born. Once in a while you get lucky. I took this in Anilao, Philippines. And most of the time, I'm sure you have seen that blue-ringed octopus are, at least many of the ones that I have seen look like nothing more than a little blob of brown algae, at least until someone gets their rings going. On this particular dive, we were literally finishing the dive, starting to swim up slope. I was turning around to follow my guide and our friend, and I suddenly caught a glimpse of blue out of the corner of my eye. And it was as if this guy was saying, wait, I'm here. So I turned around and kind of had my own private blue-ringed octopus photography session, which was amazing.
Yeah, often when shooting them, you have to rile them a little bit, not by touching them, but maybe using your hand to
Fan the water.
Scare them a little bit, and then they start flashing blue. But this one was doing it on its own. So
this one was like waving.
I must have liked you. This is always fun to shoot. This is in Raja Ampat, Indonesia. This is a boxer crab. Requires having a wrangler and the photographer. They're usually under rocks.
They're tiny, hide under rocks.
Maybe the size of a thumbnail. They grab little bits of anemone, and it lives on their claws, and they use it to catch little bits of detritus to eat. So they just basically lick the anemones, and they also use this to fend off other animals that maybe are getting an interest in the crab. But again, just what an expression.
Most people, I'm sure, have the same experience that we did, which is we have never seen one of these out in the open. The only time I have ever seen them is when a dive guide picks up a rock and turns it over. And then usually that, of course, will make the boxer crab promptly run to the other side.
A very common subject and a very bland background, but it just sort of worked. This is a bonneted blenny. I don't know exactly which type, but they always look so concerned. Come out a little bit, grab some food that's in the current, and go back in the hole. This is a barnacle blenny, and sometimes not shooting something that's so exotic. Just a good example of a common animal and a good background can be very satisfying.
That's taken in Baja. This, one of my favorite subjects is camouflage, because I'm continually amazed at how well creatures are matched to the substrates on which they are hiding in plain sight. So the background with the orange spots, that's the back of a nudibranch, a sizable nudibranch, and this shrimp that's catching a ride on its back sure knows how to blend in.
And another one for camo. This was, where were we on this one? This is Fiji, I think.
Indo-Pacific.
Yeah, this is a white frogfish, and it's basically, when it goes to work, it saddles up next to a sponge, which has just even the pores in the sponge have a remarkable resemblance to this fish. This one a little bit mismatched, unusual to see one out like this. Often it would find something yellow and sort of tuck into the crevices.
Maybe it's traveling between locations.
Maybe it's eating on the run. That's true. And this is his lure. And this little thing that looks like a shrimp is basically his lure that he's trying to encourage fish to
His decoy.
come in front of its mouth. And boy, did they open up quickly. Also a bit of a mismatch. This is a painted frogfish. I just love the pose and the expression. Whenever we see bottles, I think probably those of you who dive and do photography, whenever we stop at a bottle, there's going to be something inside, hopefully a good. These were golden goby.
Pygmy gobies.
Pygmy gobies.
And there's another little critter too.
Yeah, I don't know what that is.
On the right, I see another pair of eyes. Sometimes art imitates life or life imitates art. So this is a very, very common, anyone that's been to the Indo-Pacific has seen thousands of these, often a little patch, but I thought it was kind of cool to try to isolate this by, adjusting the aperture so that the background goes completely black. But you can see that Dale Chihuly maybe he had a similar idea. Maybe he had seen a photograph of one of these when he did one of his glass bowl pieces.
Well, this is one of his sea form pieces, so very likely he did, but just fabulous. Another lighting situation is, and this one required another pair of hands too. This is using a snoot, but it was using a snoot not just to isolate the animal, but to actually light him at all, because he was deep, or she was deep in a bommy, and
not only deep, tiny.
Tiny, maybe maybe 2
Size
centimeters.
of a little fingernail.
Yeah, maybe 2 centimeters long. This is a red-bearded goby. It stayed put because it was basically on eggs, and again required somebody to use the snoot with an aiming light to basically allow me to focus on it and then get a shot. But I thought it was pretty effective. I'm not always a fan of snooting the spotlight, but this was actually very useful to find and shoot the animal. We're going to finish with something that we've done several times now.
We've gone into Blackwater in the last couple of years. Does everybody have any, does anyone have any experience with it?
Yes.
Yes.
Yes,
okay,
okay.
good.
So, this, for those that don't, what you're seeing here is analau, and what is in the water is a lighted buoy from which is suspended about 80 feet of line, along which are strung every 15 or 20 feet or so a series of very strong video lights. So basically that's just let loose in the water. It follows the current, the divers follow the lighted buoy, and the boat follows the divers and the lighted line. And what you're trying to do is concentrate the naturally occurring diurnal migration of plankton from the depths up toward the surface. So it happens every night naturally, but by putting out a light, we can sort of magnify this effect and hopefully see some interesting larval creatures that we would never otherwise see. So this is not, it is a night dive, but it's not over a reef. It's over hundreds, sometimes thousands of feet of open ocean. So very important to have excellent buoyancy control and to keep an eye on that lighted line.
Yeah, well, no, so this type, for the lighting, we have our two strobes again. We have a spotting light or a focus light, and we have a fourth flashlight, which is a narrow beam and sort of cuts through the water, and we're looking for something to reflect back at us.
Something that's bigger than plankton.
Yeah,
Preferably.
And you swim over to it and then try not to run into it. When you get there, you have to slow down. Sometimes the animals disappear and go deep. Sometimes they'll go on your face, on your mask, and they hide there, or on your camera, which is a pretty clever survival skill. But this is what it looks like after cleaning it up.
So back to that. So what we're seeing are larval forms of fishes. So some of these fishes we will see in adult forms over a reef, but when in their juvenile or larval forms, they often have very unusual and often very flamboyant appendages, like this fish.
Sometimes they're translucent. Sometimes they look like the adult, just a small form, and sometimes they look entirely different.
So just to, when we were very surprised when we started doing blackwater photography to realize that, you're shooting plankton basically. And so, this is kind of a typical image that you would get where the subject is actually a very small portion of the image. And so, there's considerable adjustment required to sort of dial down the background, to cropping, et cetera. So most blackwater images that you see, actually, when they start, they look like this. So there are some amazing surprises. This is still one of my favorite blackwater images of mine. This is the famous Wonderpus photogenicus, which in its larval form, juvenile form, looks basically like something out of Mars Attacks. Doesn't really look anything like the adult version that you know from the reef, which looks much more like this. So it's fabulous in both adult and juvenile forms, but kind of crazily different.
Yeah.
I'll just go back. It just blows my mind to see the transformation. They're very successful hunters, though, even at that size.
But there are forms of life that will never be seen, that will never grow up to settle down on a reef. This is some kind of form of a salp.
Thought it looked like a kazoo. And here's one of Marie's shots too.
This is one of the larger things that we might see on a blackwater dive. So what you're seeing mostly is the bell of a small jellyfish. So say maybe 3 inches across. The tentacles obviously longer, but sheltering underneath the bell is a tiny little fish, and then catching a ride on the bell is a tiny little octopus. But this is an octopus that is pelagic. So it's a male argonaut. It will not grow up to, be a reef octopus. It will just spend its entire life at the mercy of the current.
And pretty much never see it during the day or night for, typical day diving and night diving. This is something you see on Blackwater pretty much exclusively.
And you see some amazing gelatinous creatures, like jellyfish of just unimaginable combinations of colors and just things that kind of blow your mind.
And this is a larval form of a tube-feeding anemone. Eventually, it will land on the substrate below and basically dig in and be the tube anemone that we all know and love. But in this form, they're basically free swimming and using these little arms to grab food and go into the mouth. So it's actively feeding as it's swimming along in the water column. Absolutely tiny, maybe a centimeter, not counting this whatever this protuberance here is. This was one of my favorite shots from, again, this is Anilau. It's one of the capitals of blackwater diving, as Florida as well, at Cozumel, but when most people think Blackwater, they think Anilau, Philippines, and maybe Mike Bartik, who's really pioneered this. This is an African pompano. The animal itself is, maybe the size of a quarter, and just paper thin, but with these just wonderful streamers. And it wasn't pleased with me being there and basically did an about face and it gave me a chance to get the streamers in a nice position, not just elongated, but now sort of bending back on itself. And I really like that composition. This is one of the things that we really hope to see. It's a diamond squid.
It's tiny, tiny.
Absolutely tiny. We're also looking, the big three would be the blanket octopus, the diamond squid, and the wonderpus. And every shot I take, it's going to have a slightly different arm configuration. So we shoot away, shoot away, shoot away until you get something with a nice position. It eventually gets used to the divers being there and ignores us and went about its evening routine, which was hunting. And you can see the last thing this poor shrimp saw was my funny face.
You can see
you can see its eyes here.
its meal peering out from the tentacles.
Yeah.
Save me.
And that's us in Cuba, courtesy of a friend that we travel with Nino, the American crocodile. And we're happy to take questions if you have any.
Can you tell us more about your camera setup? You're using a 850, and what kind of housing, lighting, and so forth?
Are we talking for Blackwater or other?
Yeah, Blackwater and yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
Steve shoots with a Nikon D850 in a Nauticam housing with, now we have,
Most people would be shooting with a 60 millimeter macro. 105 is just asking a bit too much, being that you're free floating, the animal's free floating and moving. The 105, even though you get a little bit more working distance, it's going to be more of a challenge to get things in focus. Howard Hall recently was in Alao and shot a blanket octopus, and he did it using a dome port, but that's Howard Hall, and his images are phenomenal, and he's shooting a Z8.
and I shoot a Panasonic GH5 Mark II in a Nauticam housing.
But also with maybe a 60 equivalent.
Well,
more or
it's a
less.
30 millimeter macro lens, but since it's a, since it's a crop sensor, it's sort of equivalent roughly to a 60 millimeter macro lens.
But one of the best tips that we got, honestly, was getting a narrow beam extra flashlight to try to find the critters. And happily, they sold them. Mike,
What a coincidence.
yeah, Mike sold them, and we both got one, and it really helped. Instead of a big wide beam, just sort of a cone of light trying to find the critters, we were using this more like almost like a saber or like a laser to.
Well, if you've never done Blackwater, it feels sort of like you're diving in a fog bank or a cloud. Like the plankton
pretty thick.
is so thick, it's sort of this gray cloud. So you're looking for something that's kind of standing out from that background. But that something might be pretty small. And you have to be very deliberate about approaching things, because if somebody like starts to shake their light, meaning they've found a good subject, if you swim too fast, you'll kind of create a bow wave and sort of push it out of the way. So it's an interesting alternate form of diving.
Yeah, but Analau was a great experience.
Very, very productive.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Other
I have a
questions?
question.
Yeah.
Yes, so I'm an amateur, but super enthusiastic about blackwater diving. And I was so pleased to see that you said you had to doctor up your photos to get that black
Yep.
brown, because I have been trying to do that naturally. And I have found my best shots are actually in Kona, because there's less plankton in the water. And but I do have a couple good shots from Analau also. But I've always used the highest f-stop I can and the brightest lights I can to have no backscatter in the shot. And I would say, I don't know,
It's tricky.
5% of my shots are good.
Well, one tip I can give, if you don't know this one already, Erin Quigley, she's the Lightroom Queen. Is that what she's called?
Yes. Yep.
Yeah, she sells software it's a plug-in for Photoshop called
Backscatter exterminator.
Exterminator.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, believe me, it's the best $179 you're ever going to spend in
yeah.
underwater
I mean,
photography.
after our first trip, I did it manually, and it was just brutal.
Yeah.
It does a lot of the heavy lifting for you, and also you can use it for other situations. It's not just it's not just for black water, but it's
Yeah,
Obviously,
no, I
you know.
can understand. Yeah.
Strobe
Yeah.
aiming is important to kind of, to start with a good beginning,
Right.
but if you're shooting plankton, you will have particles in the water. That's by definition.
Yeah.
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 It
Well,
works
thank
on,
you.
it works on daytime shots too.
Oh,
Yes,
totally.
absolutely.
Yeah.
Amazing, absolutely. It's
With-
magic,
Yeah,
absolutely.
the only degradation I had is I had an animal that had a sort of a micro dot texture, and it sort of cleaned it up a little bit
Too
too
much.
But you can deal with that with using masks and things like that. But you're absolutely right. It's great for other stuff too.
Thank you.
John, do we have any questions in the queue in the chat box?
one.
I think there might be some chat questions.
Let me take a
We'll
look.
take a look there. So can you name your top 3 best dive sites?
Ooh, that's
Wow.
tough. Well, okay, Rajampat, it has to be in there.
We'll agree. I think God's Pocket or British Columbia.
I think, the
Kelp Forest
the kelp
here.
forest is pretty awesome too, but one of my very first loves was Los Islotes, and I still love it. And,
Yeah, absolutely fabulous there. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm not going to say Sulphur in Iceland.
It wasn't.
No, we are going back to Iceland in August, but that's more about the eclipse. I mean, we're going to dive Sulphur again, but Sulphur isn't the draw. It's more like, puffins and the eclipse.
Thermal vents. So there's going to be diving, and we're actually heading to Tasmania. I don't know if anybody's been there.
No.
Yeah, I've dove there 30 years ago.
Oh,
It's a great nudibranch place. Well, are you focused on anything in particular?
well, we're hoping for
Weedy
weedy
and-
and leafy sea dragons.
Oh, yeah.
That's
Of course.
definitely.
Yeah.
But you also been in the Antarctica.
Yes, but we've actually been there 3 times because we love ice. We love landscape photography too, but we've never actually dove there. The first trip we did was on a Lindblad boat that had a diver with an ROV that would go down to 500 feet. So he would dive while everybody was ashore with the penguins and show us the video at night. And I wasn't too convinced we wanted to dive.
Slow moving, spindly with antifreeze blood. That said, we have friends that just got back and some over-unders with icebergs.
Yeah,
Wow.
I'm a little more interested than I was before. So if we do a 4th trip, maybe. Now, well, and plus, we've upgraded from wet gloves with our dry suits to dry gloves, and now we've added heated vests. So maybe.
That'll be where I am.
Check out Becky. Have you seen Becky Kagan Scott shots?
Yes, I have.
Yeah. Now
Yeah.
she'll turn you into a believer for
No, I'm
Arctic.
black and white right now.
Yeah, but I like my fingers. I want to keep them.
So I have a question. What's on your to-do list? I mean, is there what places have you not been that you would like to go to for the first time?
Well, Tasmania was pretty high on that list, so we'll leave it at the end of the month for that.
Is there anything left that you haven't seen? Besides
Well,
Tasmania?
We haven't done Norway. We haven't done Alaska. We have friends that have done narwhals up there. That looked interesting. They got pretty greened out. Don't necessarily. We have. I'll speak to some other weird locations that I have no intention of going to. Some dive friends have shot anaconda in the Amazon, piranha, giant salamanders in Japan. And one crazy guy wanted to do Humboldt squid in the Sea of Cortez. No, thank you.
yeah.
But for us, Raja keeps drawing us back. The Philippines has so much to offer. We did Cocos only once. We've been to Galapagos twice. We have a 3rd trip coming up. Unusual that we had never been to the Red Sea. We're going there for an eclipse
love it.
in a year.
Yeah, well, hopefully with what's
Yeah.
going on now, but hopefully.
I have a question. Do you have
Yeah.
any house plants or pets?
No
Yeah, we
pets
have-
and very few houseplants.
And
and
mostly dead.
they don't tend to do well with us.
I have
Good
a
question.
I have a question. This is Mary from the group. Where in the Philippines, just top 3 spots that you like to go in the Philippines? Because
Oh, wow. Okay. So Annalau, if you like muck diving and blackwater is fantastic. But our last trip there, we went to
Malapascua.
Malapascua is great for threshers, but we did a resort after that I really, really liked, more partly for the combination of, just a very nice resort, with wonderful food and very good diving, and in a kind of a less populated, it's on Bohol, and that resort was called Amun Ini, and I just loved that place. So I would love to go back there.
And we also did the preserve.
Dumaguete was fantastic. I would
Dumaguete.
love to go back there.
Dumaguete, atmosphere of Dumaguete and Aptos Island. So yeah.
Yeah,
Great. Thank you so much.
absolutely.
Are there any more questions? John, were there any questions in the?
No, there wasn't.
Well, that was just lovely. We want to thank you so much.
Oh, you're welcome. It's always fun
Awesome, thanks.
talking shop.
Yes.
Awesome,
Thank you.
awesome.